Competitive bodybuilding is not exactly the healthiest activity around. Sure, working out in general is pretty much the closest thing you can get to the fountain of youth, but when things are taken to such an extreme, there's certainly negative health consequences. Sadly, there are a fair amount of bodybuilders who were in their primes during the 90s that are no longer with us. With that said, many whom competed and dominated during the 90s have not even been able to maintain a semblance of their former physiques. Case in point, Paul Delet. In today's video, I want to talk about a few bodybuilders who, despite the odds, are still jacked as Many consider the 1990s to be the era of bodybuilding's greatest physiques. It was the dawn of the mass monsters, with Dorian Yates reigning supreme with not only incredible size, but also rock-hard and dry conditioning, which is somewhat lacking in today's open bodybuilding division, as Dorian Yates himself claims based on some recent interviews when discussing 2019's Mr. Olympia contest. Now during this era, you had arguably the most symmetrical and genetically gifted bodybuilder of all time competing, none other than Flex Wheeler. To say competition was stiff is an understatement. Now although bodybuilding is a lifestyle, maintaining a championship level physique long term is not something that's generally done. With that said, here's my top 3 of bodybuilders from the 90s that were able to maintain for the most part. In fact, one of them actually looks better now than ever. So number 3 on the list is Erin Baker. Erin Baker was really competitive in the 90s, cracked the top 10 in Olympia. Now he was never really a threat for the actual title, not even really a threat for the top 3, but he was always well known and one of the more popular bodybuilders back then. But of course, what's more impressive is what he actually looks like today. Here's a recent picture in 2015, still has an amazing build. By the way, in case you're wondering, this guy was born in 1960, so he's pushing 60. And he's still training hard. Here's actually a clip. He did a recent interview talking about his training.
You still train?
I do.
Every day?
Mostly every day.
Do you train like you used to?
Almost. But I listen to my body. And you know full well, you've got to listen to your body. It will tell you exactly what it needs.
There's no question.
At all. And oftentimes it needs rest more than it needs to be in the gym.
So number 2 on the list is Kevin Levrone, by far one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. In fact, he placed second place in the Mr. Olympia contest 4 different times, twice being beaten by Dorian Yates in 92 and 95, and then twice beaten by Ronnie Coleman in 2000 as well as 2002. So that kind of gives you an idea of the caliber of bodybuilder he is. Now Kevin Levrone is interesting. So he's not a bodybuilder that basically looked like a bodybuilder year-round. He would actually de-size and get down to more of a natural size, 180s, which made sense because he was touring with his band at the time. There's really no point in walking around at 260 pounds, especially when you're not competing. It puts a lot of strain on the heart. It doesn't really matter if it's fat or muscle. If you're walking around at 260 pounds under 6 foot, that's just a lot more wear and tear on that heart. So you could attribute his longevity in the sport and just his health in general to the de-sizing, the de-cycling, and maintaining more of a normal type of lifestyle. Now with that said, he did make a triumphant return in 2016. He put on a lot of size. Conditioning wasn't quite there, but you know, he was 50 years old and just making it to the Mr. Olympia stage, I think that alone is a pretty big accomplishment. Now he did follow that up with some other contests and he did improve his conditioning. Now he's not going to be at the level that he was in the 90s where he was basically placed in second, but there's a reason why he's on this list. He's still jacked, he still looks great, and there's not too many bodybuilders you could say from the 90s that still look like that. So number 1 on the list is none other than Mike O'Hearn. You've all seen him. If you've ever picked up a bodybuilding magazine or a romance novel, or maybe not even picked it up but just walked by the grocery store and seen one, you've seen his face, you've seen his body. The funny thing is, he actually looks better now, pushing 50, than he did in his 20s and 30s. As amazing that as it is. So, what can you attribute his longevity to? Is it natural bodybuilding? I'll do a whole video on that. Regardless of if he's natural or not, he obviously has probably some of the best genetics on this planet. Now, he didn't necessarily compete for the Mr. Olympia title or anything. He had a different route. He didn't have to compete for the Mr. Olympia. I mean, if you're getting all the magazine covers, all the photo shoots, who cares what contest you win? In fact, playing the size game, I think, for him would have been detrimental, especially in the 90s. It would have took away a lot from what would be more of a mainstream physique. So even though a lot of people in general, especially women, don't like too big of muscles, I don't think any of them would find Michael O'Hearn unattractive. Now, the reason he's number 1 on my list is just that consistency. I mean, honestly, can you name another guy from the 90s up until now that is still improving? I don't know, maybe he's got alien DNA or something, but he's still improving, and he's still working in the fitness industry, still an icon, still very popular. I really can't think of anyone else from the 90s that you can say that about, so that's why he's number 1 on the list. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll do another video showcasing another top 3 top bodybuilders from the 90s who are still jacked. There's not a whole lot of them. If you know of any, throw them in the comments section. I'm probably going to catch these in the next video regardless. But thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you're into bodybuilding or martial arts or anything like that, because you will find that sort of content on this channel.